Большое спасибо, Андрей Станиславович. Thank you so much, Mr. Kusinski. We're really running out of time, and I would like to immediately give a floor to our next speaker, Karen Balyan. Karen Balyan is a practicing architect and architectural historian. He's the author of several books on architecture. As recently has published a very interesting book about the architectural group working in Armenia. And Mr. Balyan's talk is going to be on Armenian architecture of the post-war architecture, post-Second World War architecture. And please.
Thank you, Ruben. Present, yes. No. Okay. View. Okay. Спасибо, Рубен.
Armenian modernism, looking for a way forward. A month ago, in Yerevan, there was a presentation of a book which I wrote, and it was devoted to three Armenian modernists, Tarkhanyan, Khachikyan, Pogosyan. In the series Master, this is the series which was opened by the book of Mr. Novikov. I was asked to give a copy of this book to the museum, the Demirjan's museum, as it had to do with the content of the book. Mr. Demirjan is was the head of Armenia, of the Soviet Armenia, from 1774 to 1988, and the last stage of modernism. And it is very symbolic that Demirjan started his career of the president back in 1974, not in the traditional building, in the opera building, but in a newly built cinema house, which was called Russia then, but then later on it was called renamed into Ararat, probably having to do with the associations, as Mr. Belogorovsky was saying, because it resembles the Mount of Ararat. So how was born the Armenian modernism? In the same way as with the Soviet modernism, but it was a little bit lagging behind. The very strong avant-garde tradition of Armenian constructivists from the very 30s was crushed by Stalin, and they were crushed, and they were sent to the camps, and they were deprived of their profession. But Stalinism was in the mentality of the people. The green light to the modern forms was given by Khrushchev, and it also gave the red light for the so-called redundancy. The Soviet modernism is the form of deviation from Stalinism. It is different architecture, non-Stalinist architecture. And at the beginning of combating against these redundancies, all the excess forms were removed from the facades. Here you see the draft and the implementation of the radio house. You see that there is no Well, a lot, it is connected with history. As you remember, there were very popular were the jokes, which started always the Armenian radio is asked, and the second part of the joke was the Armenian radio is answered. Everybody knew the joke. Oh, so where is the person who thinks of these anecdotes about the Armenian radio sits, and the Armenian radio is answering that luckily he is not sitting, meaning that he is not sitting in prison. So here is the word play in Russia. To sit means to sit on a chair, and to sit also means to sit in prison, to be in prison. When Khrushchev came in May 61 to Yerevan, asked him to show the building of Armenian radio. He knew that many of the jokes had to do with him as well. The middle of the 50s were overwhelming for the society that was used to the traditional forms. This is practically the creative pause. And Armenian modernism did not become a style into style. There were very many repetitions. There were many quotes, so to say. There was the process of learning of the principles and the language. And it is very interesting how some authors were coming back into their past. The draft and the construction, the project and the construction of the one and the same author, which during Stalin's times was one of the leading architects, Ovanes Markaryan. Here you can see the mall, and I think I'm showing it for the first time because I received this picture from the descendants of the author. And this round building is the cableway, which was constructed in 1960s. So the former constructivists were entering the new style. 31, 32, probably like that. The feeling of the style was already found in the 60s. You can say that then Armenian architects got the feeling of modernism. And after the 20s meeting of the party, this was the spirit of freedom, and which is also incorporated in modernism. A landmark of peace. The symbol of peace, this is this gigantic installation which is constructed in the northern part of Yerevan when you are going in the direction of Lake Sevan. This is the seagull. It is called seagull. Maybe these drafts are shown for the first time because we found them in the properties of the author that is not with us anymore. His descendants gave us this. So this is a metaphor of freedom. It is realized in this wind spread and shows the different forms. Well, this seagull is also connected. There was a story with Khrushchev. He visited Armenia only once. He stayed for 3 or 4 days. And when he was taken to the Lake Sevan, and they had to solve the issue of reconstruction, of reviving the level, because there were some construction done and the level of water fell down, and passing next to the seagull, Khrushchev criticized it as a redundancy. He said that how many flats you could have built with the money that you spent on that. So this wing, the metaphor of freedom as expressed in this wing spread was not understood. Chayka and this seagull and the cinema house are the same, but upside down. And as the Russian literature was born in the uniform of the story of uniform by Gogol, we can say that Armenian modernism was a result, was born after the seagull. The author of the seagull, when he saw the model of the cinema house of Nesakopian, he tore away the supporting rest, and this miniature remained steady, didn't fall down. And he said, you can see it does not need this supporting rest. And the peculiarity of Armenian modernism is also in the city planning. When after the 20th century, when the people started removing the railings which were around the parks and open spaces were created, very many water services were created, because water is the most democratic service, because it is horizontal, it is equal, it is straight. Opening of the space took place in the master plan of the city. This plan was done back in the 20s. It was supposed to express the idea of the national statehood, but during Stalinist period it was changed, and the central building, one of the central buildings, was the monument to Stalin. This is the central figure of the plan. After that, the city. After that, there were two plans already: the totalitarian plan and the nationalist plan. They were one on top of the other, so to say. But all the ideas of the national plan were implemented in the concept of modernism, and this is a very important peculiarity. The ideas of national statehood were compatible with ideas of freedom as ideas of democratic state. The attempt to compile the radicalism of modernism with the limited decisions, this is done on the level of city planning. This describes the ambivalent character of Armenian modernism. So here you see the pictures that corroborate what I have all said, where the buildings are constructed on a small plot of land, and at the same time they are open to the city and connected with the city, and it is a radical modernism. This is the cinema house Moscow in Yerevan. This is one of the main buildings of the radical modernism. The second aspect, it is its formal language. It is also ambivalent. It is like our Armenian constructivism and avant-gardism of the 20s. Both those aspects were trying to express the principles with the help of the new language that defies traditional forms. But the difference is that Armenian avant-garde of the 20s, from the very beginning, had its theoretical basis. This was the idea of expressing of the national identity. One of the leaders of avant-garde, Mr. Mazmanya, wrote, so what must be the attitude to national styles in architecture? Of course, we should not refuse it, we should not throw it away from the ship of modernity. Khan Magomedov considered that the innovative school of Armenia of the end of the 20s and the beginning of 30s can be considered as one of the first one of the first attempts of forming modern national peculiarities, where local traditions and the innovative approach were combined. And at the same time, the beginning of forming of the modernism was taking place with relevant theoretical basis. And it was imperative in its character. Modernism was coming from the tops. It was coming from the top down, and it was replaced by avant-gardism. The interaction of innovative and traditional forms in the 20s, 30s and the 50s, this is a separate topic of conversation. But there was made an attempt to enter the same river twice. Armenian modernism is trying to go away from this general canons. It was trying to find its own way in the global movement of modernism. So to translate the global language into the national, so to say. We have managed to do that. It happened earlier than the crisis of the world modernism took place, and it was replaced by the irony of postmodernism. We can say that the success will be diminished by the tendencies of Stalinism coming back. So it is interesting to note that the Armenian modernism was following two ways: the internal and external. Mr. Tarhanyan said that the deep understanding of the natural mechanism can become the star which the architect has to follow. We are not using eclectic decisions. We don't. We always try to get very strict and very pure understanding. And this is the continuation of the national architectural traditions. End of the quote. As to the external character, this is an attempt to join the language of modernism with the traditional and national science. That means to change the semantics of the language of modernism. You can see that on the example of these two memorials. They were built. They were finalized in November '67. One of them. It was called Jäger, and the second monument to the 50 years anniversary of the Soviet power in Armenia. I mean the October Revolution in Russia. These buildings look the same. This horizontal and vertical, they are the same. The inner space also is the same, they are open to the sky. But what happened with one of these buildings? At the very beginning, the column did not have the finalization. It was a 50-meter construction. 3 meters multiplied by 3 meters, and the construction was done very, very quickly, and every day one block, one meter was added to the construction. During 50 days it was finalized, but the patriarch of the architecture of Armenia of that time, Mr. Israelian, made a proposition to make some kind of finish on this column, and now it was done as the old Urart sign. This is something not very characteristic to modernism. On the left and right side, you can see the works of Mr. Israelian himself. As you can see, when in the construction of the big public building, the forms are repeated in the similar monument. This moment became the key moment in the development of Armenian modernism. So this is the addition of semantic science, became its attribute. So two ways of development of Armenian modernism, this interior and exterior, continued. But we can see that external way of development is dominating. Here you can see a giant building in the center of Yerevan. Here you can see the domination, the external approach with the use of the historical science. As to the internal, you can see that the very big complex has been of the Palace of Youth was demolished. Probably the airport that is presented at this exhibition will also be demolished. And as to the demolition of the cinema house, well, the decision hasn't been yet because it turned out that the construction is very difficult to be demolished, and the cinema is in the center of the city. So this is the situation that we are facing. This is the way that was covered. This is the road that was covered by the Armenian modernism, and the situation as we have it today. Thank you.